Have you ever been asked if you're a robot? I have. When I was interviewing for my current position, during a break in my interview, I was approached by a member, and they asked me, "Are you a robot?" And I politely responded, "I don't believe that I'm a robot, and look, I'm squishy." And I reflected on this because then they went into a conversation about what their world is like for them. A world filled with cameras, with satellites, with people watching every single move and every motion being monitored. How would you have reacted? I know that at first I was going, "Dear God, what have I gotten myself into?" But I had to pause my thinking because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to go into this relationship out of a place of being scared, out of a place of fear. In my second interview, a now coworker of mine, Jude, asked me what that experience was like for me. And I was honest. I talked about the fear going into that, but also that I was not here to judge. I was not here to change anyone. I was here to enter into a relationship, enter into something that I could explore the experiences that that person has gone through. And I'm approached a lot about alternate realities, things that people see, they feel, they smell, that a lot of us don't experience. And I always say to my staff, to members that are uncomfortable with that I don't know about all of you, but my reality is really boring. So I like to go and explore other people's experiences in the world. I like to explore what they see and what they feel. And it's an adventure. And the thing with adventures is that it's not necessarily happy, it's not sad, it's not hard, it's all of that together. And the best part about an adventure is that you're not alone. So you can walk with that person through what they're experiencing. Well, I got the job. I don't know if you could have gathered that from me being up here. And I just want to start off by saying that going first is always really nervous. And I'm up here going first. But at least I can be done with it, and I can watch all of the amazing presentations that are about to follow me. You're about to see some amazing people that are changing conversations, that are looking at common situations going around in our community and turning them upside down. I'm going to have a conversation with you all about how we can relate to one another and form meaningful relationships. The human mind and body is fascinating. Did you know that your eye sees the world upside down? And that our brain actually has to flip it in order for us to comprehend it. Our brain is hardwired to change our perspective. How beautiful is that? Our mind is filled with amazing potential, creative thinking, but also fear, terror, humanity, and most of all, self-preservation. For those of you who didn't guess from my introduction, I'm Peter. I grew up here in Keene, and I hated it for most of my life, and when I was a teenager, I told myself, I'm going to go as far away as possible. And then when I graduated college, 2 days later, I ended up back in my mother's spare bedroom. So, bummer for me. If you read my Tinder or dating profiles, you will find out that I have an obsession with hot sauce, that I have a crippling fear of skateboards, and that I have a 5-star, perfectly curated Uber and Airbnb rating. If perfect strangers enjoy getting in cars with me and letting me into their homes, then why do I find myself still single all the time? Don't really know. But enough about me. I really want to gauge, how are you all doing tonight? Good, good. That's great. I'm doing good as well. And I have an interest in mental health, and I hope you do too, because we all have it. What we struggle with, though, is how do we relate to one another? How do we form connections in a world that's filled with such divisiveness? I have the extreme pleasure of supporting the work of Monadnock Peer Support, which is a non-medical, non-clinical wellness, recovery, and advocacy nonprofit here locally. And every day we try to turn the conversation upside down when it comes to mental health, not approaching people based off of their weaknesses, but off of their strengths, forming those purposeful connections and building relationships. No, you probably haven't heard of us, But we've been changing the conversation about mental health for more than 2 decades in the region. At the core of our work, again, is flipping that conversation. Instead of asking when somebody comes through the door, what's wrong, we ask what happened. What has made it so that you come to us for support? What do you need in order for us to support you? The traditional mental health system does a lot for people, but the clinical and medical model is very regimented when it comes to how we connect with one another. That's not the case in peer support. And I encourage all of my staff to enter deeply into relationships with their peers and utilize the trainings that we have in intentional peer support and wellness recovery action plan developed by Sherry Mead and Mary Ellen Copeland. And they're really the pioneers of the peer support movement. And I encourage you all, in those notebooks that you have, to write those down and go look them up. I could start going into statistics. I could throw facts and figures your way. I could say all of the things surrounding how many people are struggling with anxiety, depression, how many children are suffering in our schools, the rate of homelessness in our community, and social isolation. But I recently was talking with a group of people, and I realized that facts and figures may have that initial wow moment, oh my God, but that's not what changes us. That's not what makes us relate to material. It's the stories. It's the stories that each and every one of us has. And those stories allow for us to foster a relationship and go into a deeper meaning other than just the face value of what we're experiencing. However, I will say that mental health is critical for us to navigate through our lives. And acknowledging what we're going through, finding those purposeful relationships are vitally important. Because when you push down your depression, when you cover up your anxiety, and you move your feelings further and further within yourself, that's not good. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help our society, and it doesn't move forward in what you want in life. It's moving away from what you're scared of. In New Hampshire, we're extremely susceptible to factors that compound our ability to not find resilience when it comes to fighting with our mental struggles. We live in an incredibly rural state where isolation in our communities is huge and rampant. We struggle as a result with transportation for the poorest in our communities and the young, and the crippling effects of seasonal affective disorder. When the winters come and the nights are long and the days are short, it can seem like you can't climb out. Now, I really want to invite you all into a brave space here, and active audience participation, and just, again, that brave space where we can all be honest with our feelings and really bringing it not just me contributing to you, but making sure that we can develop a relationship here. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I'm wondering how many of you have felt or experienced any sort of feeling surrounding depression or feeling down or depressed. Just raise your hand. For over 2 decades, I have suffered with depression. How many of you have anxiety, that feeling if one thing goes wrong, maybe during your TED Talk, that everything will come crashing down? I have a crippling case of social anxiety, which is kind of funny coming from an extrovert on a stage. How many of you see a therapist? I did for almost 5 years. How many of you have thought about, contemplated, or attempted suicide? I will admit that every day it seems like there's a little green goblin on this shoulder telling me I'm not worthy, telling me I'm not loved, and that tomorrow if I went away like that, no one would even care. And how many of you talk about this regularly with your friends and family? A lot less hands just went up. Even I struggle with sharing what I experience and what I go through, and I'm professionally obligated to share what I'm going through and the feelings that I'm having. Frequently in my work, we find that people don't talk about what's going on in their lives. We go through life going, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm well, when asked, how are you? How many of us actually feel like that on any given day? Honestly, there are some days that I want to explode. I want to tell every person that I come up with, oh my God, I just got done with a 70 or 80-hour work week. I have this talk that I have to give. I have this meeting I have to go to. I have this person that's relying on me, and home life is falling apart. But we just go on with the good, the fine, and the well. We see this in movies and books when you stare at that screen and the person has something to say: love, anguish, anger, impending doom. God darn it, why aren't you saying it? But we don't even think about that in our own lives. I'd like to reflect back on the beginning of my talk. I asked you all how you were doing, and you responded the usual: good, well, fine. Somebody said an awesome over here. There were a few cheers. I responded that I was doing good, and my mother's probably sitting in the audience going, it's well, you idiot, not good. But I said good. And in the interest of being honest, I'm freaking out right now. I was freaking out when I said that to you. I was freaking out backstage. The screen is a one-way screen. I can see all of you. You can't see me. So I was pacing back and forth. At dress rehearsal, I felt like I was going to faint. Last night, I told the TED producer that I was freaking out at 10 o'clock at night. Last week, I was editing this on the couch at work, trying to get a coworker to calm me down. And a month ago, when I was nominated, I felt this pit in my stomach, like, oh my God, what am I even signing up for? But all I said was that I'm doing good. Why do we do this? Why do we not open up about how we're really feeling? I know that I feel shame. I feel shame that I can't pull it together, that I can't be normal. But what is normal? I have an idea. How about we turn our conversations upside down? How about instead of going around saying good, fine, well, we talk about what we're experiencing? Because if we don't talk about it, then we miss that sparkling moment to be able to offer or receive support from another. We miss that opportunity to talk about what's going on. Instead of saying what's wrong, let's ask what happened. Because no matter if you're depressed, no matter if your anxiety is high, no matter if you're thinking about suicide, and I just want to say, I'm sorry if I'm the first person to say this, there is nothing wrong with you. You've just lived. I challenge each and every one of you to walk out of here and strive for meaning in your relationships. Look for those purposeful relationships that you can give and receive the full support that you deserve. Let's reflect back on the beginning of the conversation again. Do you remember anything about me? I have a hot sauce obsession. I have a crippling fear of skateboards. And I have a 5-star, perfectly curated Uber and Airbnb rating, if you know any single people. What gives us a better connection here in the audience? Me having a hot sauce obsession, or knowing what I go through and what I experience on a daily basis? Right answer. Yes. Society encourages us to paint a perfect picture. We go through life trying to show the best version of ourselves. And what does that leave us? I know that for me, it leaves me feeling empty. It makes me feel fake. It makes me feel unwanted. We section ourselves off into these silos, walling off those around us from truly being able to offer us support. We need to break down those silos. We need to be able to enter into those purposeful relationships because we're being told that we live in a crisis. But I truly think that when we talk about a crisis here in New Hampshire when it comes to mental health and substance use, we think it's out there in Manchester, Nashua. It's not happening here. There is a crisis going on here. There is a crisis going on tonight, and it's a crisis within ourselves. When you feel alone, when you feel that you can't reach out to someone, when you feel like there's nothing that you can do, that's a crisis. There's one thing I hope you gain from this talk. It's that you seek for purposeful connection in your life, and you're open to receiving that connection. That you find those relationships that you feel that you give and receive equally. Because those connections are what's going to mean the most to you. A professional service, a crisis hotline, a therapist are all great. But it's those connections that are really going to make it through the good times and the bad. Go forward not from a place of being scared, but from a place of seeing the possibility in everyone around you. Challenge yourself to break down those silos and connect with those around you. Challenge yourself to do something different, because change allows us to grow. There will be some bumps in the road, I guarantee you. But go forth on your adventure with your friends and your family at your side. I truly hope that by doing this, you find a community, much like we have at Monadnock Peer Support, that supports you, that challenges you, and holds you accountable. Let me introduce myself again. My name's Peter.